Fatemeh, thanks so much for joining the call. Such a pleasure to have you on. I know that you and I have had the pleasure of speaking now a couple of times, but to have you on this, yeah, it's a real treat. It's been good to get to know your story, and yeah, really looking forward to giving you the platform to share your story with everybody in our network. But how are you doing anyway? How's everything with yourself?
Yeah, things are fine. A bit busy at the
Yeah.
moment. Yeah, but we are managing to continue.
Good, good. Pleased everything's good, and it's nice to have a bit of busyness after some quiet time. So pleased that you could find some time for us to speak. And yeah, I guess to kick the conversation off, obviously I've had the pleasure of meeting you and learning a bit about your story privately, but would be really good if you could introduce yourself. I'm very keen to learn a bit about your role at Searchio AI.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I am a person born and raised in Middle East. Then I migrated to Malaysia, and then afterwards I came to Germany. So let's say twice migrating. And yeah, I have started my job as a Java developer, and then I transitioned to engineering management. And right now I am working in a startup. So I am forming a startup actually. It's called Searchio AI, and I am taking responsibilities as a CTPO because I believe that in the earliest stages of the startup, you have to have an eye on every aspect of the product and technical specialties, and make sure that you're steering the decisions in the correct way. So yeah, and with Searchio AI, we have started with one idea, and that idea was quite noble at the time that we have started. But during the path, there were some big role players that came to the market, and we have decided, okay, now maybe it's time for us to steer away from the original idea if we want to survive. And right now we have a great, some kind of a spin-off of the original idea that is in health tech and healthcare sector. And also we are moving towards B2B SaaS.
Nice, awesome. How come you decided to take a bit of a journey and spin off the product into the health tech space? Because I myself, I work quite exclusively in it, and I find it an interesting market. How did that sort of come around for you guys?
Yeah, well, it's a startup world, right?
Yeah.
So you want to examine your the application of your idea in different markets and see which one is really a winner. So at the moment, there is a huge interest in this sector,
Yeah.
and also our spin-off is covering really a gap and a pain of the customer. And yeah, try to have our MVP, and we are now in contact with some of the partners, possible partners.
Nice. So things are going well so far on that front then.
Yes.
Amazing. And obviously it's great to hear about where you are now and how things are going at Searchio.ai, but maybe you could tell me a bit more about your journey so far. How did you get into the world of tech?
Yeah, well, it's long time ago.
Not at all.
I didn't expect that question coming up, but yeah. Well, let's say, I don't know. I was a good grader, good achiever in the high school, and in Middle East, you usually go to be a medical doctor or engineer.
Okay.
And I always had interest for engineering rather than the healthcare branches. And also the software engineering was quite a novel topic at the time being. So I also had this resistance from my family members that, hey, this is completely new. We have no oversight. What's gonna be the future of this industry and so on. But I myself have been a kind of very curious person who wants to experience the unknowns. So I have had a bit of research, and I realized, okay, this is kind of area that I want to go further, and I selected that industry.
Amazing. And I guess the full circle moment for your parents is the fact that now your product has branched off into the health tech space anyway. So you've kind of done the best of both worlds in the end.
Yeah, but well, let's say if the product is successful, maybe I am fulfilling their wishes at the
Sure.
end.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
even now, if you ask my father, I believe he would say you could make a great medical doctor. So
Oh, really? So he speaks highly of you then. That's good.
exactly.
Amazing. Um, Thanks for the introduction there. I think it's always nice to understand how people got to where they are now and how things sort of started. So I really appreciate it, Fatemeh. And I wanted to kind of circle back a little bit. I know when we first spoke, you mentioned a bit about your journey from different countries across a lot of different cultures, from the Middle
Mm.
East to Malaysia, and now, of course, in Germany. I'm really intrigued to learn a bit more about that journey. What motivated those moves, and how did you find that, I guess, each location shaped your career and your perspective on things?
Yeah, first of all, I was always curious to know that how is working in other countries, right?
Hmm.
So the first motivation was that, and but we are in tech sector, which is highly change. Ratio of change is so high that
Hmm.
you always want to cope with the rapid ratio. So I was motivated to get to know more about this industry. So this is one of the reasons for those books. And well, I learned a lot during my journey. I learned a lot about the people, about culture of work, and so many others.
Amazing. And I'd probably know it's quite hard to give a determined answer from this, but what's been your favorite place of working so far, if you could choose one?
Well, I'm staying in Berlin, so I think the
Okay.
answer is kind of obvious.
That's a safe answer, a good answer at least anyway. Good to know. And how would you say learning about different cultures and aspects has shaped your role now and how you act as a leader in a company?
Yeah, of course. As a leader, you must know how to interact with people, right?
Hmm.
And people are coming from different ethnicities, different cultures. And I think knowing about these, being exposed to these different cultures during my career path, I got to know these differences and I
Hmm.
have developed some ideas how to tackle these differences, how to bring the topics to each person based on
Hmm.
their way of communication, for example.
Yeah.
So I would say all during these jumps and these experiences that I had in the past, there's one thing fixed, and it's like every manager wants to provide an environment for their team members
Yep.
that they can thrive, that they can have these high performing and at the same time trust-based environments, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of unique, and everybody wants to achieve that. Doesn't matter which country you are working in. But based on the culture, maybe there are some differences. How do you want to achieve that, and how do you want to
Hmm.
implement that? When it comes to motivating people, for example, it's very important for a manager to be able to motivate their team members and their subordinates, right?
Yeah.
So we have this questionnaire that we try to ask our team members that what motivates them first. So
Oh,
what is
nice.
their priorities? And I can with high confidence say that if you ask that question in different countries, you will get different answers based on their priorities, right?
Mm.
So it's coming from cultural differences, coming from different priorities in their lifestyle, and I learned to live with that. I learned to accept the differences and try to adjust my strategies based on that.
Yeah. It definitely sounds like you've got a really good understanding of the management aspect of things. I think seeing it from both sides of the coin, both being an employee and a manager, definitely
Mhm.
helps. And you obviously mentioned that you transitioned from a Java focused development role into management, and from my understanding, with no sort of formal studies. What was the transition like, and what did you find most challenging, and on the other side, most rewarding out of that change?
Yeah, of course. As a contributor, as an individual contributor, you have your own way of uh, uh, contributing to the environment you're working, right? But then when you transition to the management role, you are kind of a bridge between people. You have new set of roles and responsibilities that you have to take care of, and you will get to understand the reasons behind the things that your manager was previously asking. Let's say when I transitioned, I started to learn, oh, now I understand why a manager tries to implement these processes and so on and so forth. So the transition was a bit in the beginning, a bit scary, but of course you have your upper manager, you have your mentor, and you try to share your concerns and get some advice from them. Apart from that, I have started reading books because I was like, okay, doesn't matter how experienced my manager is, but he or she can only tell me about their set of experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I started reading books that are kind of a result of research in this area. So many books are out there regarding the engineering management, regarding the management in general. And they are based on case studies that have been in real world applied, and they had great results showing out. So I started searching for those books. I have informed myself, and with each book, I was looking forward for the next case that there would be some kind of unknown situation, but now it is probably known to me because I already have seen that in a book. And I like these books because they are coming not from one perspective, but rather a study that is based on multiple factors. That helped me a lot.
Makes a lot of sense, and I think everybody should take that on board. It's difficult to just learn from one person. The practical aspects of things are extremely useful, but when you actually start looking at the analytical side, the studies and everything, then that's where you can take your knowledge from tier 1 to tier 5. It's all a learning curve. And you obviously mentioned that you've worked with managers that have a lot of different approaches to things in regards to how they work, how they run the business, and I'm sure that you've seen your fair share of managers and bosses who might not necessarily run things the way that you would. And if I recall, when we spoke previously, you mentioned that you joined a company where the culture wasn't a fit, and obviously finding the cultural fit in a job is of course a priority. Maybe you could talk us through your experiences with joining companies on a cultural fit, and maybe your learnings that you found out on how to maybe approach things and be as successful as you can be on a job search.
Yeah, well, actually, I had multiple experiences where many of them were very successful, but some of them also weren't successful. But the fact about failures is that you try to analyze them, you try to reflect on them, and then learn from them. Well, I learned a lot from a failure that I had, because when the dynamic is working, then it is working. It's not highlighted. But when it's not working and you are applying all those methods and methodologies that you already know that it should work and it's not working, then you are learning about all these changes and all these differences. So for this particular case, for example, it was during the interview process, the terminologies were similar. So we were speaking similar tongue. But when I joined, I realized that all those terms have different meanings here. And it's really mind blowing that how different people can interpret the similar terminologies in management. This is not technical anymore. This is management. This is like a different term, and the people can interpret that in a different way. So after joining the company, I had this feeling that there were some signs actually. It was like people were under constant stress. And it was a big question for me that why, and especially in the management, like the managers were more under constant stress rather than other people in the organization. And it kept me thinking that why this is happening, and it should be like a healthy environment for everybody, right?
Sure.
So after a while, I realized that, well, it's a very simple answer, because there's no conflict resolution process. So people were avoiding any kind of interaction because they were scared of the conflicts, and those conflicts would stay with them until the moment that there would be a performance appraisal, and it was going directly on their performance appraisal. So, and this wasn't just for one team. This was the entire organization's culture. And I was like, okay, I as an individual and as a manager that has joined, I can try to improve this. I can try to bring the topics to my managers and other stakeholders' attention, but it wasn't successful because you as one person cannot really change that huge environment. It is much easier to try to find this better environment for yourself rather than applying so much changes that are being resisted. I can also give you some examples of these misinterpretations. For example, we say that every person in the team should be, the team members should work like missionaries rather than mercenaries, right? We are changing the team, but it was completely different. It had completely different understanding in the team. And this culture of having two hats was completely out of scope for them. And people believe that as long as they are delivering the part of the job that is only related to their sector, they would be safe. And also, even a simple feedback from the manager side would be causing some biases, causing some misunderstandings, but in many companies, it is already there and it's already part of the culture. And it's not just in IT industry. I see that in many industries is already part of the culture. So after seeing these red flags, I was like, okay, maybe it's now my time to move on. But it's really interesting to see that even though the business can be successful, but the culture can be quite different.
Yeah, I agree. And as a recruiter in the space, it's something that we do see a lot, whereas there are some companies that are building really cool things, but you speak to employees and they aren't happy, they're stressed, there's a lot of pressure, and it doesn't seem like everyone's on the same page. And I think it's always going to be a tough thing for companies to build. But I guess the positive for yourself is you've now had the opportunity to learn from those things that went on, and it means that you can positively influence things in your next opportunity. I guess a question on that side of things is, for someone who is looking to bring change into a company, or someone like your situation where you join a company and things aren't necessarily done in the right way, how can they assess or understand that a company is ready to hear that change?
Well, based on the, management styles and the advice that I learned from the books, you have to first understand that what is your role. Are you here to apply those changes no matter what? Or are you here to have the consensus first and then apply those changes? Because sometimes they hire you to apply the changes because the company is anyway going towards that direction and everybody in upper management is already in agreement with these changes. Then, the book says you don't need to have the consensus. You are here to apply the changes, so bring your best. And of course, if you can get the consensus, that would be great. Otherwise, you have to do your job because you have been hired for this responsibility. Apart from that, and normally, and in a very normal situation, as a new manager joining to the team or the organization, you first want to understand that what is the culture, what is the way of getting this consensus, how people reach out to each other to build that trust and so on. And as a new manager, building that trust would be one of your challenges because you are new to this organization. And of course, they have onboarded you because they have seen a lot of potentials in you during the interview process, but you still are under kind of the magnifier to make sure you're fit to this role.
Yeah.
So my advice would be that first examine if this is your responsibility to apply those changes no matter what. And if you have to build the consensus, then start building those consensus by getting in contact with people, by having regular check-ins, by providing your views, perspectives, having and listening to their views and perspectives. And then the best thing would be to come up with a plan that works for everybody. So if you have their consensus in a way that they also want to apply these changes, so they feel that they are part of this solution, that would be much easier to implement.
Makes a lot of sense. So it's more about analyze the situation first, see if you're someone that can make those changes, and then go through the process of actively sharing your feedback and knowledge, then going through those changes. Amazing. What I wanted to lean on to next is, as a woman in tech, we have these conversations a lot, and everybody has a lot of different journeys. Everybody has a lot of different challenges, and I think the journey for women in tech is on a very positive direction, and we're seeing a lot of good things that are happening. But as a woman in tech, from your perspective, and especially as someone that's moved to a new city, what challenges have you personally faced when trying to find your voice in a historically male-dominated industry?
Well, let's say a lot of challenges because even in Germany, the majority of our colleagues are male colleagues. We still have this disparity in the male and female balance. So there are multiple challenges. Sometimes you go to a meeting and you see that, okay, in a big, huge meeting room, it's only you as a female colleague. And sometimes you have this feeling that people, maybe they already have talked about many of these topics in advance and they already know which direction they are going. So that consensus have already been done, have already been built without you being part of the cycle. So you have to always try to find if this is happening and you want to break this cycle and you want to be part of these discussions and make sure that you have understood the situation, you understood the solution and so on. And well, I myself as an engineering manager who has the option to help other female colleagues, I always try to help them to be vocal, to be present and not shy out and just leave some of the work for other colleagues that they think they are already in sync. So instead of whining about the situation, I learned that, okay, whining is not getting me anywhere. So I have to do more. I have to be more active and proactive, be more present, and simply do more to get myself to the place that maybe other colleagues already are there. But I think there's still a huge gap here, and we as male and female colleagues, we have to really take that into consideration and try to eliminate this imperative.
I agree. Too often the blame gets pointed on one side of the coin. Yeah, I think it's definitely justified, but I think the change comes from everywhere, and people need to have a good understanding of how to approach things and make that change. And I guess a question to follow on from that: do you have any specific advice that you would give to a young woman that wants to get started in tech, that maybe doesn't know how to approach things or might be a bit anxious stepping into the field?
I would say don't shy out, be strong, and with every failure, come back more strong.
Amazing. Great to hear. To kind of segue on a bit, you've also stepped into the world of startups and entrepreneurship in Germany. In a city of Berlin where we see startups coming out of every door front, it's a tough thing to navigate for any founder, male or female. But what barriers did you encounter personally when trying to build a business as a newcomer and a female in the space?
I would say being a foreigner was kind of the main disadvantage because the main barrier is language. So you don't know the local language. Of course, I have tried to learn the language, and now I think I am in a great level. But still, when it comes to legal and the tax-related documents, those documents, words can have different meanings. Even in my mother tongue, in those documents, word have a different meaning. So in that case, I would say try to make a connection to some advisors, some people who can help you in those areas. And that was kind of the first barrier. Also, when it comes to startup world, and especially in Berlin, well, here in startup community is kind of scattered here and there. So you have to get yourself in connection with them. So I was trying to build my network with them and building this trust that is always required. Doesn't matter if you are going there as an employee or as a co-founder. I would say even for a co-founder, it would be more serious and critical to build that trust and have that due diligence, everything in place. And as a migrate founder, I can provide the history of my work with them, right? So I haven't been raised here. I don't have friends that I can start with them and so on. So it was a bit difficult, but what I learned was that go to the meetings, discuss about your way of thinking, your way of working, if you have a demo, provide the demo. And this way you are building that trust. This way you are telling them that you are the person fitted for this idea and for this company that you want to build and so on. So I would say after that, even if, the partnership is not happening for the first startup, then second and third they would be lining up. And there are challenges, but you need to pave your way through them.
You've highlighted a really good point there of how important having a network is, having a presence, having people in the space that you can lean on. And you obviously weren't blessed with having a network already built. You didn't have friends, you didn't have ex-colleagues in a city, and you essentially started things from scratch, and that's always going to be a difficult thing for anyone, especially in the founders space. But maybe you can tell me a bit about your experience in building a network from scratch in Berlin. What sort of steps did you take, and how important has that network been in your startup journey so far?
Well, I started with going into the events and meetups. And also, whenever I feel that it's fit, I try contacting my previous coworkers that if the field would be related. And apart from that, you go to the meetings, you go to conferences. After getting initial contact with people, you will try to follow up with them about sharing more, maybe having the second, third meeting with them, and you will try to maintain this connection. And after that, I think you easily have built a network, and now it's a matter of the idea and how interesting the idea would be.
So it's all about building trust and kind of laying a foundation for future building blocks of building a company, right? Amazing. And I'm sure there's a lot of topics that you could talk about here, so it might be tough to boil it down to one. But looking back at your journey so far, the failures that you've mentioned, the successes that you've had, the transitions, the relocations, the people that you've met in the past, what would you say that you're most proud of at the moment?
I would say I am really proud of the journey. It's not like I enjoyed the journey. I enjoyed most of the moments during the journey. But what I am proud of, when I look back, I see a huge history behind me. And I think I am really proud of that I had the courage to go to all these different environments. I had the courage to experience more. I had the courage to continue with success. I had the courage to face the failures. Even in those failure cases, I never said, okay, well, I'm gone. I always said, let's explore a bit more. And when I am sure, then I will be gone. So I think I am really proud of the entire journey.
To hear, and I guess the old saying sticks, it's more about the journey than the destination.
That's really true, actually.
Amazing. And I just have a few sort of quick fire questions for you, if that's okay, to just try and learn a bit more about you on the personal side. It's obviously been really great to talk about your history and journey and how you've found things so far. But to go more personal, what do you do outside of work to unwind or even to stay inspired?
I like reading books. As I already mentioned, I like books because they are not talking in single perspective. And I like doing some sport these days because I found out that if you want to divert all the stresses that you are anyway earning from your workspace, right? If you want to divert them somewhere, it's better to divert them into a sport and make a better thing out of it.
What sports do you play?
It's not a sport. It's like mostly like Pilates and yoga that helped me a lot with my physical capabilities, and also it really helps with unwinding your mind.
I guess yoga and those types of sports are a really good thing to get stuck into in the stressful world of startups and being a founder.
Yeah, it's helping a lot. I can recommend them.
Then you say that you like to read. What book would you recommend for our Woman Rock bookshelf?
Well, there are many. I would say there's a very old book. It's called Five Love Languages, and it's also very applicable at the work because as a manager, you You want to motivate people, and you seek for means of motivation, and it's not always financial, right? So
Yeah.
based on the personality, based on their preferences, you want to apply them. So there's a book about 5 love languages, and I think there are 2 editions, one for businesses, one for personal life, and I recommend reading both of them. And also about engineering management, I recommend engineering management systems. I think it's called Systems of Engineering, and it's one of the books that helps a lot trying to find out different aspects of an engineering management role.
Good to know. We'll put them on the bookshelf for you. Make sure that everybody has access there. Good to know. Who would you say has been, or still is, the most influential people or person in your career?
My career, I say one of my friends. She's also a very successful engineering manager. I like that she's competitive. She will not, surrender so easy. I like sharing a lot of thoughts with her and learning from her and so on.
That's really sweet. Amazing to hear. And personally, who is someone in life that inspires you personally?
There are multiple people in my life that they really inspire me, but there's one person, just to make sure that other people don't complain. I don't want to name. There's one person who always motivates me more because he actually, by his way of living and working, he taught me that giving up is not one of his options. So that's always very motivational for me.
Amazing. And I think it's quite a safe option to not pick one person, or to keep at least that person a bit more vague, but I'm sure that they'll
Yeah,
know who it is that you're talking about.
yeah, they probably know.
Amazing. And what's your favorite song that we should add to our Woman Rock playlist?
My favorite song. Actually, I enjoy a lot of songs, but I was thinking about it. There's a song, I don't know the title, but maybe it's Silent. I don't know who is the singer. I don't know what is the title, but
Okay.
I think that the content is Silent or Voice of Silence, something like that. And I really enjoy listening that the song because the ups and downs and the high pitch and the anger in the voice, everything is kind of love, kind of life.
Yeah.
It's like life is consisting of all of these things, and it's really motivational for me.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I really like that.
Would you be willing to sing it for us? And maybe we can put that on the playlist instead? I'm only joking. Amazing. And one final question, sign off and a closing. Could you leave us with your favorite quote?
My favorite quote. Well, there's this sentence that is always like rewinding in my head, and it says, things that got you here will not necessarily get you there. So, as a developer who transitioned to management, and even now I'm transitioning kind of every quarter, something like that. I always keep that in mind that the things and the skill set that brought me here will not necessarily bring me to the next step. So for every step, I need to look back my experiences and also have these analysis that what is required for this role that I want to take. Then based on that, start learning new skills or start improving some of the already existing skills. So that's kind of, I would say that's a slogan in my mind, that things that got you here will not necessarily get you there. First, understand what is required and then get yourself prepared for that.
Amazing. So it's more about learning from what you've done in the past and then looking for the future, as it's not always going to be the same. Amazing. Fatemeh, that's everything on my side. Really appreciate it, and I know a lot of our blog readers and viewers are gonna relate to a lot of this and really enjoy hearing your story. But that's all the questions on my side. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with the women and even men and everybody that reads our post that maybe we've not covered yet?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. And for women, I would say keep your head up and continue. For men, please support the women around you. And let's continue all together.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.